My dad, we're doing a handicap ramp for the front. Yeah. I think we're doing a little pad in the back. Like behind the
Message mom and take care of it.
Try to think of a copy.
If we start seeing him splitting, we can always pass
Negotiate's not bad. I ain't gonna fit I don't come from here.
Call the regular board meeting to order. Let the record show that all aldermen are present. Tonight we will have Dr. Barnett lead us in the invocation, and Boy Scout Troop 271 will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please stand.
Let's pray. Our Father, we're very grateful for a beautiful day here in Ocean Springs. We're grateful to live here. We pray tonight for our aldermen and mayor as they make decisions, that you give them wisdom. Father, we're thankful for this scout troop here and these young men. We're grateful to see young people involved in such a great organization and endeavor. And we pray that tonight's proceedings would be a blessing to our city. In Jesus' name, amen.
If you guys want to come up and stand in this area right here together. Where you won't be all scattered through the room. Be all in one room. Okay.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, young men, for coming tonight. Special treat for us. Is there a motion to accept the amended agenda? Motion by Mr. Impey. Mr. Blackman. Okay. Did you make the motion? Right? Yeah. Okay. Motion by Mr. Blackman, second by Mr. Impey. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. We've got a couple of proclamations, and then we've got some recognition of employment services. Vicky. The first proclamation is for National Public Service Safety Telecommunications Week. Who's here?
Eli. Perfect timing.
Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, and/or emergency medical services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who contact the City of Ocean Springs Emergency Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunications are the first people our citizens reach when requesting emergency services. And whereas public safety telecommunicators serve as a vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators at the City of Ocean Springs has contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during their performance of their job in the past year. Now therefore, I, Kenny Holloway, Mayor of the City of Ocean Springs, do hereby declare the week of April 9th through April 15, 2023 as National Public Safety Communicators Week in the City of Ocean Springs in the honor of men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. Sir? Would you like to say a few words? That's a very stressful job. The next one is to Chief Boyd. Well, my height. Whereas the City of Ocean Springs prides itself in giving back to the community, contributing to the quality of life among our citizens. And whereas CASA of Southeast Mississippi, in association with the National Court Appointed Special Advocate Association, speaks for the best interests of abused and neglected children who are involved in the juvenile courts. And whereas more than 35,534 reports of maltreatment throughout the state of Mississippi are reported to suffer from child abuse and neglect each year. Whereas of those, roughly 6,529 were substantiated investigations, meaning at least one form of abuse or neglect was found. Whereas in Jackson County, there were about 273 or more substantiated incidents of abuse, neglect, and or exploitation. Whereas within our state, 81 children died according to the most recent federal numbers reported of abuse and neglect. And whereas through the national effort of the City of Ocean Springs, community members are encouraged to join together and raise awareness of those children that have fallen victim to abuse and neglect throughout the month of April. Whereas this effort will give abused and neglected children in our community and around the country a chance for a safer and positive future. Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and the City Board of Aldermen of the City of Ocean Springs, Mississippi, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. In this city, and in doing so, urge all citizens to join in a national effort to raise awareness and help prevent child abuse and neglect. The City Hall is lit up in various colors throughout the year. We will continue to light up City Hall for Easter, and then on Monday we will light up City Hall blue, which is the color for child abuse prevention.
Yeah, so it wasn't too long ago. It seems like just yesterday. I was a foster parent, and if it wasn't for a CASA worker that was assigned to our case, man, it just made the world of difference. So about a year ago, I was asked to serve on this board, which I mean I couldn't say no, man. So we just expanded into George and Greene counties. And we have right now, I think today, 367 kids that are in state custody. About 280 of those are here in Jackson County. And we served about 83 families and 130 children that we have advocates assigned to by the court. So it's a pretty good organization, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got some certificates of recognition for years of service and dedication to the city. The first one is awarded to Stephen Dye for 15 years of dedication, commitment, and loyalty to the City of Ocean Springs Police Department, Lieutenant. Stephen's not here.
Would you like me to accept?
The next certificate of recognition is awarded to Leonard Ordonez for 15 years of dedication, commitment, and loyalty to the City of Ocean Springs Police Department. Lieutenant.
Thank you, sir.
This bill is full of women. There's 3 men and about 40 women in here. Special ladies that work with us. Certificate of recognition awarded to Jennifer Farrell for 10 years of dedication, commitment, and loyalty to the City of Ocean Springs Supervision and Finance Department, payroll technician.
They're full of advice.
Next one is Amanda
I know.
Dixon. This award goes to Amanda Dixon for 5 years of dedication, commitment, and loyalty to the City of Ocean Springs Police Department, senior records clerk.
Henry's not here yet.
You need the steps.
Next one is certificate of recognition awarded to Henry Lamb for 5 years of dedication, commitment, and loyalty to the City of Ocean Springs Parks and Rec Department, maintenance laborer.
He's not here.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take it.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public hearing. We have a approval of a zoning change from RD 2 Family Residential District to CMX1 Neighborhood Commercial Mixed Use District at 318 General Pershing Avenue, parcel number 601193994.000. Is there a motion to open public hearing?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Osmond, second by Mr. Cox. All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Carol?
Yep, this request came to Planning Commission at the previous meeting, and as you have in front of you, the request is to go to CMX1, which is the least intense of the commercial districts. And the information that you have in front of you was presented to the Planning Commission, and while the staff was more inclined to not recognize this as a change in the neighborhood, the Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval. But all the information is here, and I know that Mr. Scruggs is here to present on behalf of this client.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak for or against?
Good evening. My name is Donald Scruggs, 217 Pine Drive here in Ocean Springs. I do appreciate the board allowing us to come here tonight and talk. We did go before the Planning Commission and got unanimous approval, and we hope you will do the same. I do want to point out that the area has changed significantly, and if you look at the agenda tonight, you're even going to consider a redevelopment district. And with that redevelopment district, you are identifying a certain area, actually the lots that are just to the north of this, as being part of a non-residential and blotted area. So if it's a document that you plan to adopt tonight identifies this area as non-residential, and we do know that the area to the south is already business, we do think that there is evidence that this area is changed and even is being recognized as changed by this board. So we do hope that you would see this as a positive in voting for this request. Additionally, if you may know that just this last week, the plans associated with 1550 Government Street have been submitted to your planning office, which is a huge deal. 1550, of course, is the old Swingster site, and there's about a $30 million investment that's about to be developed across the street from the site. This will also include a parking garage that will be basically in the front door of this proposed rezoning. So, $33 million site is kind of equivalent to a Walmart as far as investment. It's a huge investment. Hotels, it will have additional condos, it will have restaurants and retail. Government Street's changed. Downtown Ocean Springs has changed. And it's continuously has moved eastward. And we think that this site that you requested for a rezoning tonight does indeed fit the parameters, and we hope that you will see what the Planning Commission saw and approve this rezoning request. Thank you very much.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
While he's up here?
I don't know, one of my biggest concerns with this rezoning is just the potential of it being a spot zone in the middle of the residential street. I do agree with you that it has changed and it should go to CMX 1 or 2. What's your explanation on?
Bobby, my biggest point on this is that this site faces a very intense commercial district. Probably the biggest commercial investment that this city is going to see or has seen in the past 10 or 15 years. It's quite substantial. Zoning typically follows mid-block, meaning that you zone behind property so that you separate from the residential behind it. I see this particular rezoning as basically an effort to provide a transitional area so that you'll have Ocean Springs lumber and their warehouses that this property looks across the street and sees. Behind it is a neighborhood that's being protected. The neighborhood, this particular site, has long since not been protected because of the commercial encroachment and industrial activity that's going on exactly to the east of us. So I don't see this as spot zoning at all. In fact, there's evidence throughout the city, and some that's provided in the packet, that shows where some smaller transitional zones has been used in downtown Ocean Springs. Specifically, the small parcel across the street from Todd Bob's Salon that's on CMX1 between the Bowen Residential and the CMX2 along Government Street.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else
I
have
have a
any
question.
questions?
Yeah, Donovan, so the neighbors are okay with it?
I know Mr. Moran is.
I'm talking about the people that live next to it, not people that don't live next to it.
There was the individual that spoke at the meeting, who I don't see is present tonight, were concerned about property values being increased. I spoke to him
But my
about.
question is, are the neighbors for it? It doesn't matter what the reason is, I'm asking you, the neighbors are for it.
I don't know that the Pleasant. If you're
I
talking
think you
about,
know the answer, you just beat on the bush.
they do not want their property rezoned. Ricky, I
Correct.
don't know that they really oppose
Right.
this project.
So the property you represent 10% of that side of the road. Do you not agree that there should be a study done and the whole side of the street be rezoned at one time instead of rezone a piece of property that abuts residential on 3 sides?
I don't think a study should be done. I don't think a study is necessary. I think with a change in neighborhood character that's evident and that's supported by this board, that the rezoning should be able to occur just because what is being shown.
Well, there's nothing that's changed yet.
You don't
There's
think,
not a permit-
I just had
there's
dinner
not
at
a
Murky
permit issue yet.
Waters. I believe that's a change in neighborhood character. The 2-story development, the realtor office that is right there to the south of it is a change in neighborhood character. The parking garage that backs up to this site is a change in neighborhood character.
Is it there?
The parking, I mean,
Yeah,
the parking,
Is the permit given?
the parking spot, the parking lot that used to be the old Fallow site. That's also a change in neighborhood character. The removal of the Swingsters building. Y'all rezoned the Swingsters building back in 17 or 18 because of a change in neighborhood character. That's across
And
the
it
street from
still
this.
sits that same way today. There's no changes to that property yet.
Building was removed. I mean,
Yeah, the building was removed.
that's a change.
So, I just, the thing is, your application, you apply for a zoning change for a short-term rental. If I read that right.
They asked the intended use of the property.
Right. So in November, when this board first started talking about VRBOs and we knew that there was there was a need, or there were some people that were looking for VRBOs that have been basically calling every week to find out the number was increasing and stuff. We didn't put a moratorium on it. We tasked the planning department to go out and do a study on what we already had in the city, and you refused to just wait for them to do that study, that you decided that you wanted to just pick it out and rezone it, which now has caused other people that are questioning or inquiring of our rezoning on Robinson and Porter Avenue. And personally, I just don't think we can just start carving out the city to rezone to accommodate short-term rentals. I mean, while the impact might not be for rezoning might not be real great at the beginning, it could be at the end because of what the property can be used for. And you know, the planning commission went totally against what the planner for the city recommended to them, told them specifically that that it was sitting in the middle of a residential neighborhood that made up only 10% of the road frontage on General Pershing. And look, this is the deal, you know, like when our planning commission goes through, I mean, when our planners go through all of the work to tell these planning commission members what they found, you know, I feel like we need to trust our planner that this is the way it needs to happen, and I just personally can't support rezoning a property for short-term rental.
If I can address that, first of all, you know, the intent, a part of the intent of the redevelopment district, from what I've understood, is that you see this area is changing, you see this transition. You know, that's going to require some form of rezoning. So what better way to start this major plan that you have for the redevelopment areas except through a rezoning? Second of all, you know, a point that I brought out at the planning commission meeting was that while it was stated in the report that the area was primarily residential, Ms. Martin, when she gave her conversation about short-term rental on the front end, she said that short-term rentals are indeed businesses. So there's some kind of conflict going on, you know, with how you actually call these. Is a short-term rental a business or is it residential? It functions a lot like a small hotel. So in that regard, you know, it is a business. And to say that that General Pershing on the west side is not business is not exactly accurate.
But there, what the planning commission or the planning department has come up with will allow y'all to do, or allow your clients to do what they want to do. So there's really no purpose to rezone this property other than you just don't want to wait a month.
I mean,
Is that? I mean, because we're going to achieve the same thing. So I guess I'm just confused on why it's so adamant about the rezoning.
Well, they're probably adamant about it. We made an application back in December. We were kind of under the assumption that it was going to be brought to the planning commission to be considered in March. It was not brought in March. It was brought, maybe it's going to be brought next week. I think it's on the agenda for next week. So it's still not there. And what if you get to the planning commission and it is not rubber stamped?
So what if 15 Government Street doesn't get built?
Then those guys have wasted a ton of money.
15 Government Street is.
Oh, I know that. I know, but I'm just saying, what if? I mean,
What if? You just said it is.
But I guess basically what I'm trying to say to the board is that I don't want to sit up here every month to rezone property for short-term rentals when we have an avenue for you to get there that's only going to be in a few weeks or a month.
And Ricky, I don't want you to rezone property because somebody's trying to circumvent the ordinance and go towards short-term rental. That's not what I'm here for. We are across the street from the biggest investment that's going to be made in Ocean Springs in the near future. It has not been an investment made this big in 20 years. So we're not just any property on Pine or Robinson or anywhere else. We're across the street from the epicenter of development in Ocean Springs.
I get it. But if that's the case, then you need to talk to the neighbors, and all the neighbors need to get on board. They all need to rezone at the same time. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak for or against? Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing? So moved. Motion by Mr. Hoffman. Second. Mr. Tanya. All in favor? Aye. Is there a motion to approve or deny the zoning change?
I have a motion to deny the zoning change.
Got a motion to deny. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Tanya. Need a roll call.
Can we have a little discussion?
Sure.
And hear from our planner? Carolyn, can you give us your true thoughts on the zoning change?
Yeah, it is, because it is surrounded by residentially zoned property, that generally is considered a spot zoning. That's the first red flag, is that it's on all three sides. When this application first began, it was with this stated intent, because we did have the application for a short-term rental. We are concerned about setting the precedent, because we have been getting phone calls since this began of, can I rezone my property so that I can be commercial and not have to go through the public hearing process for a short-term rental? That is just one concern. But in generally, we don't, rezoning a property should not be an easy process. It really needs to be considered, because it's not really just for what can be happening on that property at this one given moment, but in the future, it opens the door to other things that may or may not be conducive to the neighborhood. So there are a lot of layers in this particular property, with the conversation, as it alluded to, between the downtown overlay district, which is a part of the short-term rental ordinance that will be in front of the planning commission next week. So there are several layers and moving parts to it, but in general, we just try to use caution when it comes to rezoning a property from residential to commercial when it does have abutting residential.
So when this was brought to the planning department, why, our planning commission, why was it not recommended that we go ahead and do the whole street instead of just one?
In general, we would need to look at it and get each property owner. That is something that we could pursue, but it's not something that we generally would go in and say, we're going to rezone your property. That's not the correct pathway. But if we sat down and talked with all the property owners and see if they were interested, we could look at it holistically.
I mean, I totally see the reasoning for rezoning this property.
Right.
But it makes sense to do all of them.
Correct.
And I just don't understand why we didn't make that move then. And now we're looking at one property instead of
Well,
Carolyn had it in the paperwork to recommend it to the planning department to look at that.
it's something that if the neighbors had come out at the time that this was, advertised and said, hey, we want to get on board with this, but we hesitate to walk in and say, this is something you should do to your property. But if they had been interested, we certainly would have proceeded.
And I feel like we'll be looking at the rest of them here soon.
Yeah, we're going to address the rest of it at the next board meeting, I believe. And there's no question that this area and this piece of property fits in the short-term rental
The density
long
zone.
plan, long-range plans. What's the zoning to the east of it, or the west of it?
It's R,
Where the parking lot?
RD.
Parking lot is?
I believe that's RD.
Oh, it's along with the west parking lot.
To the west.
It's a parking lot.
To the west. Yeah, that's still residentially zoned. Yeah.
It's residentially zoned, okay.
And then, like I said, if it is a parking lot now, or but it's still a piece of property. We can't really always look at the current use, because that use could change. So that's why, not that you can't consider it, but it's something that you need to take with a grain of salt.
Okay.
I personally feel like, I hate to do just one property like this at a time, but I think that it's fine to change this to commercial. But I think the next planning commission meeting, y'all need to be looking at the rest of them on that street.
Well, and if that's,
all in the overlay district, right?
it in the density zone, is that what you're talking? Yes. So that the short-term rental ordinance that is scheduled for next week's planning commission meeting, public hearing, does create what we call a density zone, which has a larger cap, but it also falls under the current downtown overlay district, which would, all the residential properties in that district would not be under the cap at all.
I've got my own opinion of that density
So-
zone,
So that's a different subject. But it's in the current overlay district, which our proposal is, because there's only a handful of residential properties in the downtown overlay district, and so it would basically get a kick up the ladder as far as not having to be under the cap. So if that ordinance is passed and that section of it is still included, it could go straight forward to the public hearing process without waiting in line for a cap.
I think, to me, there's several. The biggest issue is the spot zoning question that you brought up. And we as Vicky said, we don't want to be sitting up here every month spot zoning property all across town. And, second thing is it appears the neighbors haven't at least voiced support.
No, they haven't.
And so I'll state it that way. And I think that probably the third thing is the short-term rental ordinance should be in effect within approximately 30 days. I'm seeking your guidance, but would you say so?
Yeah, well,
So that would resolve the use of this structure that this man developed.
it would be about 40 days because it has to come back to you all, but yeah.
Within 60 days.
With a month and a half, yeah.
This question will need to be
Correct.
here. So,
Anybody else? Okay, roll call.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
Nay. Motion passes 5-2.
So that was to deny it, correct?
That's it, denied.
Okay.
Did you get it?
Bobby and Rob were named.
Yes.
Yes, I voted too soon.
That's you're eager on that one.
That's my own.
Next item on the agenda is agenda public comment. Public's invited to address the board for up to 3 minutes each for a maximum of 30 minutes, only regarding issues listed on this agenda. Please identify yourself and the agenda item. Anybody want to address the board on any agenda items? Okay. Old business, we need to adopt a resolution approving the urban renewal map. You know, we played with this map a little bit. It was brought to our attention the last time we had it out that some of the property did not meet what do I want to say, Carol?
The official definition of slum and blight, which is
Yeah, it didn't meet the law, basically, of what urban renewal should be. So we went back, Carolyn, Wade, and I drove the city, drove where the map was, identified what we thought fit the criteria, bill, and adjusted the map accordingly. So, anybody have any questions about the urban renewal map?
I do. I tend to not agree with it. I thought we would look at all of them kind of fairly because I think the part that was cut out definitely has some slum and blighted areas in it that match what y'all approved. So at this time, I mean, personally, I don't feel like this complex we're sitting on is slum and blighted. I don't believe that area 6 should be included. And I really think that parts of what y'all took out could be included. So I will not vote for this map.
Well, if I could also clarify, it's not just the definition of slum and blight, but when we look a little deeper into the laws, it's also areas that have the potential for redevelopment, as opposed to areas that maybe just need a little fixing up.
There are several properties through here that was taken out.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mayor, I'll just say there was one change on page 3, depending on how it goes, just a change in residential use on page 3, to redevelopment.
The map has been up in Carolyn's office. It has been posted, downstairs. So we're hoping everybody would have a chance to look at it, and make your comments and recommendations so we can address it before we get to this point, because we really need to get this thing moving.
I didn't see it, Mayor, until the agenda came out Thursday.
It was,
The new map, and I called Wade immediately when I saw it.
okay, well, I didn't know anything about that. I've been happy to discuss it with you. We did ride through the areas, and we took out what we thought that the law required us to take out, and left in what the law required us to leave. And it came back from Slaughter, actually, was the one who said, and then Eddie McDonald, our attorney is working on this, said, you've got some areas in this thing that really don't apply, and
And I think we still have some areas that don't apply if you're going by those standards.
Well, I mean,
And so I have a question, so just for clarification, so the maps are to indicate not just slum or blighted areas, but also properties that are in need of rehabilitation, conservation, redevelopment, or a combination thereof, correct? So it's and or.
It's and or, and it also may contain ones that are directly adjacent to it that by themselves don't meet the definition, but constitute an area that would be good. And it's important to say that it would be good for redevelopment, not just to fix it, not just to make it prettier, but if you have a whole street and two of them look okay, but the rest of them are not, then the street maybe is a candidate for a redevelopment project.
Reevaluate.
Right, and by putting it on the map, it would be eligible for the redevelopment authority to focus on it.
So the map's not an end-all be-all.
It's
It's a recommendation based on what's been looked at, but it's not etched in stone. It's just kind of creating a perimeter.
well, the parcels would be the ones that would be eligible, if I'm understanding the process correctly, and would have to get the attorney to confirm that. But it does mean that every single parcel in that area that's been defined may not specifically by itself meet it, but the area in general might be good for a redevelopment, whether it's infrastructure or the buildings themselves.
The and or.
Right. It doesn't mean that there is a project planned. It just means that it is an area that could be considered if a project becomes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That clears it up. Thank you.
And this map isn't set in stone once we pass it. I mean, it's always subject to being amended and updated.
I'm assuming, yeah.
That's correct. Okay, so that's not a final.
Right. It can be modified as you go forward, as things change. Obviously, you want to reevaluate it.
so say that again, Mike.
No, as I said, just because we pass this doesn't mean the map's set in stone. It's subject to be updated, amended as the situation warrants. So, if we need to change it in the future, that
We're gonna have to go through there, and we're gonna have to identify each parcel by parcel number. So as we take the map and get this, if we get this passed, and we figure out there's some parcels that were left out, we can definitely come back and add parcels.
And maybe that's what created the issue of him saying we need to take some out, because we were actually trying to make clean lines.
Right.
And making clean lines brought in properties that did not need redevelopment.
Yeah, and as the mayor said, we'll be looking at each one, taking pictures and evaluating them in more depth than we did at this level. So we may come back and say, we reevaluated and have different opinion on individual parcels. Yes, that could happen.
I'll make the motion adopting the resolution approving the urban renewal map, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Mr. Hippie, second by Mr. Blackman. I'm gonna need a roll call on this.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Nay.
We got 5-2. Pass the resolution. New business. Is there a motion to authorize the mayor to execute a contract with Clark Auctions for online auction of surplus property?
So moved, Mayor.
Okay, we got a motion by Mr. Aldermen, second by Mr. Blackman. Is there any discussion? Bobby, you had some questions.
I just had one about the fire department's trailer. We can go ahead and approve it for the auction list, but I'd like for it to look at possibly renovating it into a restroom, the portable restroom. If that's worth doing, I'd like to see us possibly do that. If not, we can let it go in auction if it's not feasible to do.
When will the auction start, Vicky?
Next Sunday, is what the contract says. We don't have to put it in. I mean, he's just gonna come take pictures this week and then it'll be ongoing.
Will we know by next week whether this is feasible?
I think we
Is that
can.
trailer good?
I'm no RV expert, but I'm sure we can find
We can make
somebody
some
that
phone
can
calls.
tell us whether
You got a good floor to it?
it seems to be.
I mean, do we have resources as they convert these into, would we even know who to call about them?
The thing is, how much money is that involved when you have to?
We don't know yet, but I'd like for us to research
Air
it.
condition. Insulation walls.
Just fire chief.
I think we should.
The air
I think
conditioning's
we should
on.
buy a brand new one.
That'd be nice, but we've got this. I mean, we won't lose anything if we can't, we can still put it
Let's
on.
go ahead and, we'll leave it in there and we'll do some research and kind of get a ballpark figure on what might be entailed.
Yeah, if it's not worth it, it's not worth it.
All right, so, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're gonna go some, updates of the adopted fee schedule on residential and commercial short-term rental application, and renewals. Karen, you want to explain?
Yeah, when we were going through the short-term rental ordinance and evaluating it, one of the things that we had come up as a recommendation was to increase the fees for renewal and the application fee. However, when we got into the verbiage of the current ordinance a little better, it did not require an ordinance to change those fees. As given to you in the memo, it does include the verbiage that it set the dollar amount or the most recently approved fee by the board. And we've been doing that with all of our applications to take the dollar amount out of the ordinance so you don't have to come back and change it by ordinance. So this, that was one of the things when I gave a conceptual discussion of the short-term rental ordinance with the Planning Commission. It was pretty, it seemed like there was consensus for that change. So we can remove that from the ordinance. The ordinance will just refer to the most recently adopted fee schedule, as most of ours do now. So what's before you is to amend the official fee schedule as presented with commercial short-term rentals, which are now $50 and $25, to both of those be $100. And the residential, instead of $250 for renewal, go ahead and set both of those at $500. This is kind of in keeping. Many of the cities along the coast are doing a very similar type fee increase. When we first started this program 7 years ago, however long it was, we really were not sure about the level of work it was going to take to implement and maintain it. And it does take quite a bit of staff time through inspections and whatnot. So we believe these are very reasonable fees and will help kind of support the program and make sure that everyone who is getting their permit is.
I believe these fees are in line with what Long Beach or some of the other areas.
They're all right around $400 or $500 each. Yes, yeah. So I said we're being consistent with the area. We're not out, we're not increasing them too much where I think that will hurt us. And it is definitely something that it's been a very successful program. Our ordinance has been asked for and apparently duplicated other places. So I think we're doing something right. It's just that this fee is more appropriate to the actual activity.
What we think is going on, I believe what we found is that there are some people who are holding short-term rental permits and really not using the property as a short-term rental just because it's so cheap just to hold the permit.
They'll use it once or twice a year.
This will, I guess, separate the pretenders from the contenders in the marketplace.
Correct.
So, anyway, is this something you want to act on tonight, or are you just putting this in place?
We can. It is available for you to act on tonight. It does not have to be done as part of the ordinance, and so we wanted to go ahead and bring it to you separately in the proper fashion.
Got a motion by Mr. Offermitt to accept, adopt the fee schedule. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Burgess. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Does anyone have anything to pull from the consent agenda? So motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Motion by Mr. Yempey. Second by Mr. Blackman. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Department reports. Does anybody have anything to pull from the docket claims? Is there a motion to approve the docket claims?
Second.
Mr. Yempey, second by Mr. Cox. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. City clerk, accept the monthly budget report. Does anyone have any questions on the monthly budget report?
I'll make a motion to accept the monthly budget report.
Motion by Mr. Yempey, second by Mr. Wade. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. In the building department, we have appeal of a tree removal denial at 3405 and 3407 Nottingham Road. Darrell?
Yes, so this was actually appealed in last part of February.
and the gentleman that was wanting to speak for it was unable to attend due to unforeseen circumstances. Anyway, he had asked to request that he could appeal it again, so he could actually explain why he's wanting to remove the tree.
You want to table it? Is that what he wants to do? Is table?
No, he's wanting to, if he's here tonight.
Well, and if I may, I can speak towards it, since he's not here. Don McLean is doing the tree work on it, and the other trees that we've approved to have removed, they're so intertwined that Donnie feels that once we start grinding the stumps, it's gonna damage and ruin the root system of the oak tree anyway. We've got a situation where, from a financial and time span, the ideal circumstances would be to remove all the trees at once, and instead of staggering it that way. And so I would like to accept the appeal and go ahead and have the trees removed. It is an elderly couple. There's a significant amount of tree that's going to be over the roofs of the houses. So once that system gets compromised, and there are already, to my understanding, branches up in there that have been damaged from previous storms. So I'm just concerned about them.
It's pretty cluttered up.
Mm-hmm.
Why was it denied first time?
I actually denied it because I didn't know what his intentions were. I mean, it could be, if he wasn't grinding the roots, if he was just taking them out, but with the grinding the roots, some of them were actually closer to the tree. So,
Yeah, I think we determined that once they do a cleanup, it was going to get all the stumps out and everything. To Daryl's point, if they were not going to do that, it's a matter of housekeeping, then it probably would be a non-issue. But because they're elderly and because those stumps would be a trip hazard and things like that, they would have to be removed.
and the roots already are.
Correct.
Okay, we got a motion by,
Yes, I make the motion to accept the appeal.
second by Mr. Aldermen. Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. General public comment. The public is invited to address the board for up to 3 minutes each for a maximum of 30 minutes. Only 2 speakers will be allowed per side of each issue. If you'd like to address the board, please step forward, identify yourself before speaking.
Hi, I'm Gary Bachman, 5001 Heritage Lane. And I just wanted to commend Public Works, and I'm glad Alan's here tonight, for the treatment and proper pruning of the crepe myrtles along Highway 90 the last couple of years. I have addressed this board in the past about some of the improper pruning in the past, but I'm just glad that, you know, Alan's working with the contractors and actually doing, treating the trees the way they should be treated, besides all the cars that run into them on a Saturday night. So that's all. I just wanted a little brief, appreciate it.
Last year we had a crepe myrtle trimming class, and it got certified. So.
Right.
Hopefully some of those guys haven't retired.
I got 3 of them.
But anyways, thanks a lot. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Dr. Rock.
Anybody else want to address the board?
I'll just do a quick thanks along those same lines for help with the Spring Arts Festival from all the aldermen who showed up. And of course, Public Works once again came and kept things looking real nice for everybody who came downtown. So thank you so much to everybody. So,
thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on to Mayor and Alderman's Forum. Alderman Burgess.
Just a couple of things. So Alan and Sarah, I'll be meeting with you guys next week on the spreadsheet. And then, quick question, Stephen. The scoreboard on BB3, are we missing a part on that? Are we waiting on a part? What's the status on that?
They're waiting on a part to come in from the company. I'll follow up with Chris tomorrow and then email you, see what's coming in.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll make it so that I call you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I just have one thing I want to ask Carolyn. Going back to the short-term rentals, I know we advertised for the overlay district, right? That was the only thing?
That's part of, no, there's, the draft ordinance is on the website, or I can send it out to you all, but, that's one of the things. It includes.
It increases the number too?
It increases the overall cap, but it kind of creates a dual zone, kind of like the, dual zone control of the air conditioner in your car, so we could increase and allow higher density where it already naturally happened, which is kind of a bubble around the downtown area, and still allow for short-term rentals in the rest of the city, but not to have them grow at the same rate. That's how it naturally evolved, and we're kind of using that percentage.
Good.
What's that?
You think
Yeah. I think that what we're seeing, and because there is, now that the fee increase has been approved, and then we refined some verbiage, which is really just kind of housekeeping clarification. And then also in the downtown overlay district, which is different from the density zone. So I want to be very, very clear about that. The downtown overlay district is an existing district that has some clarifications and some extra guidelines for development to keep the character of that area. And one of the things in the short-term rental is residential properties in that existing district would not fit under the cap. They go through the same process, but they would not. So it allows them to even,
So with the number that would be absorbed in
There's a total of 10.
That are on the waiting list now?
4 on the waiting list and 6 existing. So those 10 would be taken out from under the cap. You're freeing up 10 spots.
Yeah, we're thinking that fee schedule may
drop off.
Right. So you freed up 10 by the overlay district, and then the fee schedule, and over the next 6 months or so, we'll kind of see what that trend happens and
we're looking at
reevaluate.
that for the first meeting in
It would be advertised for the first meeting in May, because it has to be re-advertised. Yeah.
And then if it comes to us and it's unanimous, then it would be immediate.
I believe so, yeah.
It wouldn't be that much of a delay in time.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I have.
Mayor, I just have one thing. I'd like to discuss the Clydesdales coming to town. I know, I understand that we're planning a rolling roadblock again. And my experience, the last few times they've been here, the rolling roadblock does not work. We are running around in front of the Clydesdales on golf carts trying to stop cars, turn them around. So I don't know if a motion to close the streets temporarily till the parade is over. But we need to do something different because we didn't have enough presence to keep the traffic away from the horses.
My recommendation is to barricade the streets, the hated barricades. That's the safest way to protect everybody.
And we got all those barricades.
There is some pictures that we've seen that from the previous Clydesdales that it's people, they stop to go drop off some beverages and people just want to get to the horses and get to the trail. Our traffic patrolman did not think that was necessary, so we
maybe because they weren't there last year when they were there.
We can definitely discuss it again, but they are the ones that make that recommendation. But I was for using barricades in certain areas, maybe not the entire route, but in certain areas.
I know when we started off, it wasn't that bad. Midway through the parade, it was like we were out front trying to stop traffic, turn them around, and it didn't work. I mean, we can't have cars passing the Clydesdale, so
I think the police department did say though that they were going to use the motorcycles this time and get ahead, way ahead, and circle back
but
around.
the problem is the number of, they can go catch 1 or 2 cars, and then you got to pull them out on the other streets. So we could barricade those streets temporarily.
Side streets could be barricaded all the
Side streets would be barricaded for sure. But I think the conversation was 2 motorcycles in front, 2 motorcycles on the sides, and then following with a car or
They would have about 6 police
all
together.
You won't have motorcycles next to those horses.
No, I think
They
it
won't
was
allow
next to the trailer itself or the wagon itself.
behind the trailer.
I can tell you, they told us if you had a gas golf cart and that thing backfired, you were going to be in trouble. Then you better be on an electric golf cart.
Don't hit a siren.
So they won't allow.
We can revisit that.
I'm just telling you, personal experience, we need to make a motion to allow whatever needs to be done to close the streets, because it got out of hand.
Remember, and I've got no problem with that. That was my recommendation from the start.
Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion so that it's approved, so that when time comes, we
need to close Ward too.
Now realize, if we're gonna close the streets for sure. Are you
If
talking
we
about
close the streets,
barricades?
that means the signs have to go up the night before. We can't leave streets.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
And then all the barricades out, the manpower to put all that stuff out.
I
think it's
don't
their
think the
concern.
barricade would be necessary unless you want to do it in hot spots, like where they turn the corners, maybe would be the only thing you'd need them. But I just know that the rolling roadblock is.
I think you're gonna need barricades from Washington at the very least, if you wanna do that, from Washington probably to, Ward, you could probably.
Captain Tyner, you
have discussed with the traffic lieutenant and the patrol lieutenant, and I think that they have a plan, but if somebody wants to revisit it, then they're more than open to listen.
Well, I know last year they started out with us, but then they left us. And so, we were coming down Porter and we didn't have them. So it fell on the golf cart at that point. So.
Can we revisit it with the police? I mean, that's what, you know, we pay them for to.
No, I totally agree, but we probably need a motion to allow them to close whatever needs to be closed.
That's fine, yeah.
So I'd like to make that motion to revisit it with the traffic division and allow the road closure
As they see fit.
along the route as they see fit.
Motion by Mr. Cox.
Second.
Mr. Wade. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Papania.
Yeah, Ms. Dalton brought up the short-term rentals, and I'll belabor this because I've talked to Carolyn before about it, but I would like to remind you, ask you at the planning commission meeting next week. I'm talking in terms of short-term rentals on residential streets. I would like to see some means of not stacking them, if you will. I have a problem on a nice residential street, settled neighborhood, with two of them facing each other, catty-corner across the street. And I think it would be reasonable to take a look and state that short-term rentals on residential streets, hammer this out, say 500 feet apart. No closer than 500 feet.
And in our discussion, what I had said is, you know, the draft, you know, we already have the public hearing going forward. And as I was discussing earlier, we're not sure what the effect of those changes are going to be, but we had a list of others, and that's one of them to look at to fine tune it after that. We didn't want to implement too many things at one time because then we wouldn't know what was affecting what. But that is that would be on the list for a next wave of refinements.
I just want to go on record making that recommendation from some folks in my board.
Got it.
That's all.
Bob?
Good. This board issued a moratorium on on apartment buildings that expired on February 18th. The conditions that we passed that moratorium under have not changed. We had a letter from JCUA about the additional stress on utilities, and I think that moratorium needs to be extended. And I'm going to make a motion to do that, picking up on that February 18th and extend that moratorium for 12 months.
Got a motion by Mr. Impey. Second. Second. By Mr. Aldermen. Any discussion?
Was that 12 months from the February date, Mike? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1.
6 months.
All right.
Only other thing I had was, I'll tell everybody happy Easter.
We have Crawfish Boil, which will be boiling on the beach, on Dub Beach. The event is April 29th, and it's from 11 to 3. It's Friday before that is our final Friday at the Fort inaugural event. Dwayne Dupsey will be playing that night. I think Alderman Blackman is going to serve as our crawfish coordinator. We'll have a captain's meeting that evening, and we've extended an invitation to the mayors of the surrounding cities along the coast to have a friendly crawfish boil competition. And so that weekend also we've got the Thunderbirds flying Saturday and Sunday. So the groundbreaking, I believe, of 1515 Government Street on Wednesday, Clydesdales on Thursday. So it's going to be a very busy end of April for us. A lot of things happening. So just wanted to give you that reminder. Also, the State of the City is April 20th, 5:30 p.m. at the Mary C. We'd love to have the citizens of Ocean Springs come out and hear from all of us on what's happening in the city and the state of the city. Vicky, let's see, there's a note that Vicky Patty requesting permission to publish the agenda for April 18th recess meeting on Monday due to the use of new software. Vicky Kelly will be out of town.
I don't have a problem with it.
Everybody hear that?
Spring break.
Recess meeting on Monday instead of Tuesday.
No, not the meeting, the agenda.
Oh, publish the agenda, I got you, okay.
Instead of Friday.
Okay, then the meeting on Tuesday. Publish the agenda on Monday, meeting on Tuesday.
And I'll text everybody too and remind you all that Monday that they'll be coming out. City Hall will not have a lot of staff the week of spring break because we are full of moms.
Well, I have to say that the civic clerk, that's what it's called, right? It's awesome. Just throwing that out there.
Everybody have an issue with that?
So, no, it was awesome.
Okay.
Very easy to use.
You gotta go then.
It's easy to navigate.
I need a motion to go into closed session to determine the necessity to go into executive session. So moved. Mr. Osborne, second by Mr. Wade. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries. Board is in closed session. We will be here for executive session.
Can I make a quick public announcement? No.
Yeah, you can.
Tomorrow, the Y is having a Special Olympics swim meet. It's from 9 till 1. If you can come out anytime during that time to the pool side and cheer them on, they will be very, very excited. There's a lot of, Olympic athletes going to be there swimming tomorrow. So please come out and cheer.
Let's get a picture with the Boy Scouts. Picture with the Boy Scouts.
I got sidetracked once it started.
I'm going to get behind them. They're going to
Dash everything else and they're trying to come back. I'll get this back. Tell them to go now. Surgery.
corral Boy Scouts up here.
No, we're talking about gold blast surgery. I have 3 floors.
Might want to move the chairs.
Yeah, it's probably, but it might just be an update.
I want them behind up here. All right. I'm not going to give them away.
Oh, that's great. I'm just glad I got
Hey, Patty, can you move some of those chairs in front of Mr. Empey? Scoot them down.
Jennifer, you need to be in front.
Here. to the YouTube and turn it off.
Raven, do we need to double roll or we need to like make
I got it. Everybody come together. There.
Spencer.
hand down?
Hey, Rob, get on your tiptoes.
Look at that serious look.
All right, look